Good morning. If you just confirm that you're hearing me clearly, please.
You are audible, member.
Thank you.
Testing 9, testing 10. Morning.
Morning, Chair. You are audible.
Yes,
Morning.
I'm just doing testing 9, testing 10. I don't know why people always say check 1, check 2. So I'm doing check 9, check 10.
We can see you. You are audible.
Thank you very much. If the volume is fine and everything is okay, then we will wait for 10 o'clock. Who is controlling the camera that side? Who's controlling the camera that side? Hello?
Good morning, Chairperson. I think this is a full virtual mini-plenary, so there is no
I'm aware.
camera.
I just wanted to know who is in the control room for the camera. I wanted whoever is doing that to zoom out a little bit.
It should be your camera on your side. It's not controlled from our side.
Oh, I thought you can do it from your side.
No,
it's fine. I'll deal with it from here. No, don't worry.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem.
Recording in progress.
Honorable members, good morning, and we take this opportunity to welcome all of you who have joined this mini-plenary session. We also take this opportunity to welcome the media and all South Africans who may have made it their time today to join us. Parliament has provided various platforms on which you can follow the proceedings of Parliament. We do this as part of our responsibility to ensure transparency, public participation, etc. As I said, honorable members, we welcome you. We have now reached a stage where we can have silent prayer or meditation. Honorable members, we proceed. Before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini-plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitutes a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of the virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of the debate, will apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in the sitting of the National Assembly. Members, a sitting of the National Assembly will equally, members will equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to have been present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members in the House. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone, and where connectivity permits, you can connect to your video. Members may make use of the icon on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise a point of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are asked to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of orders or interjections. Lastly, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini-plenary session, and therefore any decisions will be taken in a full plenary session of the Assembly. The first item on the order paper is a subject of discussion in the name of the Honorable Z Majozi on urgent call for intervention by the South African Police Services and the intelligence structures to address the politically motivated killings, including the killings of the Amakhosi and other traditional leaders. Over to you, Honorable Majozi. You've got 6 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. As we gather here today, the IFP is in mourning. This very week on Monday night, Induna Umdima of Soweto, a traditional leader and a long-time IFP member, was gunned down at Ninesfield Hostel. We send our deepest condolences to his family and pray that may his soul rest in peace. Tragically, this murder is not an isolated incident. Last month, Inkosi Khumalo of the Amantungwa Traditional Council in Emadlangeni, as well as his wife, were shot and killed in Kingsley in KwaZulu-Natal. The list goes on and on. This is why, as the IFP in Parliament, we want to echo the call of our IFP colleagues in KwaZulu-Natal, who consistently raise the issue of murder of Amakhosi and Izinduna, and the ongoing lack of protection of our traditional leaders. According to National Treasury, the South African Police Service has budgeted 1.9 billion for VIP protection for the 2023-2024 financial year, and this will increase to 2.2 billion over the next 3 years. The question must be asked, why is South African Police Service willing to spend billions protecting the president and other government leaders, yet no funding is allocated for the protection of our traditional leaders? Amakhosi and Izinduna work tirelessly in and for their community, yet are abandoned by government and the SAPS. Further, while there is an interministerial committee on political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, it appears their focus is only political office bearers. At a briefing in September, Minister Cele noted that 52 councillors have been gunned down since 2011, and that 103 officials working within municipalities as political office bearers and officials in political offices were killed. No mention is made of traditional healers, traditional leaders. Promises were made by the KZN Department of Community Safety and Liaison in January 2022 about the establishment of the Community Safety Intervention Unit to work in conjunction with law enforcement agencies to deal with the specific challenges related to the safety and security of traditional leaders and Izinduna. Nothing came of this, but now with elections approaching, the same department has budgeted a once-off allocation of 11.5 million for the establishment and functioning of the Community Safety Intervention Unit on a pilot basis in the 2023-2024 financial year. This SIIU will be implemented for a 6-month period in respect of the protection of 14 traditional leaders in response to the killings of Amakhosi in KZN. Considering the murder of Amakhosi and Izinduna serving communities in KZN, and considering the billions spent on protecting government officials to protect only 14 leaders for only 6 months is an insult to the institution of traditional leadership. The IFP therefore calls for an urgent commission of inquiry into the murder of Amakhosi and Izinduna, as well as for the SAPS to immediately divert resources from VIP protection as well as crime intelligence to tackle the terrible scourge. In their communities, the traditional leaders and the VIPs, let us therefore ensure that, like other senior leaders across South Africa, they can continue to perform their duties and serve the people without fear of their own lives. Sihlalo, njengoba siyinkatha siphakamisa lesi sicelo ukuthi amakhosi nezinduna azivikelwe ngazo zonke indlela ngoba nabo bangama-leader wethu kuyindawo esihlala kuzo bayasiprotecta, bayadinga-ke nabo ukuthi bayithole i-protection from the government, from South African Police Services, so that bazokwazi nabo ukuthi bakwenze umsebenzi ekumele bawenze kahle, bawenze futhi ngokuyikhandla nangeqhaza abalibambile, silibheke silamukele futhi kuyindawo esihlala kuzo, sazi ukuthi yibo abazivikelayo kuzo zonke izinto esizenzayo. Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Our next speaker is Honorable Marekwa from the ANC, 9 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson, and good morning to yourselves and members on the platform. Greetings to all. Honorable House Chairperson, in an effort to ensuring the safer communities in our country, the ANC government is committed to fighting all forms of crime, including murder as well as assassination of people, political leaders and traditional leaders in our country, or even including all areas, including rural areas. When we said that we want to build safer communities, our intention was to ensure that everyone in our country enjoys their lives without fear of being criminally targeted or also becoming victims of these criminals. Many families have lost their loved ones in the hands of criminals. We should collectively express outrage at those criminal elements within our society that inflict pain on us by killing our loved ones. Honorable Chairperson, since 2019, we have seen our government, the ANC, developing measures to put into practical implementation the priority of building safer communities and fighting corruption. These include government investment in the upgrading and building of police stations, as well as the purchasing and maintenance of the vehicles. There are also a move towards greater use of technology for crime prevention. The budget allocation for the Department of Police for recruiting over 10,000 police personnel to bolster the capacity of the police in the fight against crime must also be applauded and acknowledged. Additionally, almost 99% of police stations have functional community policing forums that ensure the practical participation and role of communities in the fight against crime. The Moerane Commission of Inquiry, established by the ANC government to look into the issue of political killings, largely focusing in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The government in the process, this was the government being in the process currently to implement recommendations from the commission to curb also political killings, Chairperson. The Moerane Commission put to bear the complexity of the factors linked to the political killings. This ranges from the intra-party political tensions, the inter-party political tensions, as well as some business interests of private individuals that are linked to state procurement. This means, Chairperson, that when we deal with political killings and the killing of traditional leaders, we should move away from making presumptions that are not based on any form of evidence. In this regard, the Interministerial Committee of the Cabinet on Political Killings makes observations that the causation factors for these crimes are linked to intra-political conflicts, with a few cases linked to other motives, such as taxi violence, domestic related issues, business competition, and traditional leadership competition, as well as family feuds. Our democratic system and the Constitution of the Republic guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of association. This is one of the fundamental rights in the Bill of Rights in our Constitution, and it must be a right that is respected by all of us. Our democratic system also provides for people to exercise their rights in electing the leadership of their choice. This means that no one should impose themselves upon the will of the people. People should not kill one another for political positions. The system of traditional leadership is our heritage, and it defines our being as African people. Indeed, like any other system, the system of traditional leadership has its own challenges, but what is important is that we should resort to peaceful means to resolve disputes relating to traditional leadership. We should commend royal councils that elected to take the judicial route to resolve their disputes. Ordinarily, our wish is to see traditional councils resolving their disputes amicably among themselves, but if a solution is not found, let us allow the law to take its course. We should find ways to engage with the House of Traditional Leadership to find a lasting solution to challenges relating to traditional leadership. We understand that there are incidences where traditional leaders are targeted and killed by criminals for reasons that are criminal of nature. In this regard, we should encourage the communities to participate in the CPFs, which is the community policing forums, to curb this act of criminality as well as those with evidence. To assist with those with evidence, to assist the police to arrest those who kill our leaders. In updating on the work of the Interministerial Committee on Political Killings in KZN, the Minister of Police spoke on behalf of the IMC that a task team that includes the SAPS NPA, supported by the State Security Agency and Correctional Services, the Premier and MEC for Community Safety and Liaison in KwaZulu-Natal, has been in operation to address these political killings. The minister further reported that since the 4th of July 2018, a task team has so far investigated about 321 dockets. As a motion calls for intelligence-driven operation, the minister indicated that the task team is conducting intelligence-driven operations, targeting possession of unlicensed firearms has resulted also in 172 cases. Over 250 unlicensed firearms have been taken off the streets through police operations, and we need to applaud those kind of actions from the side of the police, Chairperson. As a legislature in our oversight role, we should from time to time engage with the police and the law enforcement agencies in general on the progress they are making to address the political killings and the killing of traditional leaders. Let there be silencing of the guns, and let us save the lives of our people, including our traditional leaders and other leaders in our communities, in the effort of fighting crime as South African. And this government of the ANC continues to champion those issues in making sure that everybody in South Africa, whether you are a leader or a traditional leader or a political leader, you enjoy the right of life and being able to live free and out of fear, not overwhelmed by fear, and protecting and fearing that your family also will be targeted. Let us silence the guns that are running amok in our communities, and the ANC is in government and is ensuring that there's safety and security for all. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we are now migrating to the EFF. No name has been provided to me.
EFF.
4 minutes.
Chair, would that not be the DA?
Sorry, Honorable Whitfield. Sorry, the migration is towards Honorable Whitfield. We've got 6 minutes.
Yeah,
my apologies, Honorable Whitfield.
Chair, I've been asked, it's Diane Kohler Barnard, I've been asked to begin the debate from the DA side. I thank you. I've watched over the years as we, the MPs, formulated plans to, for example, streamline the security cluster systems so that a victim could easily access information about their attack, the arrest of the suspect, trial dates, incarceration dates, and the parole dates. But this is the government of the ANC, and it just lets us all down. 15 years down the line, and that system just doesn't work. 85 of us are murdered every day. Need I say more? The intelligence services, crime and defense intelligence, and the State Security Agency do the work domestically and abroad, despite the fiddling with the legislation, which we've tried for years to reverse. But what they unearth is, it seems to me, ignored, unless it's of particular benefit to one politician or another. Speaking of politicians, we allegedly have yet another new minister, the third or fourth this term, assigned to work with us. But I wouldn't recognize her if I fell over her, as she's far, far too busy being an ANC spokesperson on every subject under the sun that she simply ignores the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. I stand to be corrected, but I think she's only attended twice since she was appointed in March. Now, we have some of the finest minds in the country presenting the realities of our situation, both globally and domestically, to the committee, but it seems their information goes absolutely no further than the doors of the secret room we sit in hour after hour, day after day. The fact that police, defense, and the security agencies are not connected was never more apparent than during the July 21 riots. And you all know how catastrophic they were in terms of both lost lives and destroyed infrastructure. The ANC learned nothing from that, because once again, this entire cluster was caught with its pants down this year with the torching of 21 trucks in July. How did the SAPs not know this was about to happen? Where was crime intelligence? Are the billions this parliament assigns to the security cluster not sufficient for them to just do their jobs? Well, why the system is not working can be perfectly showcased by one particular political murder. That was of the ANC Ward 101 candidate, Siyabonga Mkhize, on the run-up to the November 2021 local government election. Now, this happened in my Central Durban constituency. A by-election was duly held, and in came Mzumuni Ngiba. In a trice, he was then arrested for the murder of that 2021 candidate into whose shoes he had so swiftly stepped. Now, the system seemed to work up until that moment, but then in came the ANC. And Ngiba proceeded to receive a full ward councillor salary for a year and a half until the persistent demands by the DA asking where he was finally forced the hand of the ANC speaker. The dog ate my homework excuses why he hadn't been fired ranged from, gosh, we didn't know, to the email at the prison doesn't work, so he can't sign the relevant form. The prison's about a 12-minute drive from the center of town. I had known for a very long time that he was in jail and watched in despair as we actually had to force the ANC to do the right thing. On Monday night, it was then revealed that at his second bail hearing, the same man was allegedly accused of not only intimidating state witnesses, the witnesses in his case, but additionally, he was choosing his very successor from his jail cell. No matter how good our intelligence agencies are, no matter how good our police are, when faced with this, their work must feel unutterably futile. When the JSCI calls over and over and over again for the Cabinet to present the General Intelligence Laws Amendment Bill, the GLAB, they ignored us. The committee, in fact, had started requesting this in the previous Parliament before I joined this committee. The Cabinet has taken over 5 years, and it is just too much of a coincidence that the very day a totally fed-up committee was ready to table a committee bill, suddenly it emerged from nowhere, leaving us to now frantically have to process it before the 1st of March. Not only that, but it included patently unconstitutional bits and pieces, which then took weeks for the experts to clean out. And it only finally arrived on Friday last week. Now, political killings are the norm in KZN, and the ignoring of SSA intelligence reports, of crime reports by the SAPs, as our various agencies continue to work in ego-filled silos, shows such a vacuum of leadership that it's enough to make one weep. Considering the billions and billions spent, how do we simply not know that a riot, another assassination, another construction site invasion is about to happen? Our services are hamstrung by an impenetrable political fog, and it's the ANC government which has brought us to this point. It is beyond time that we threw them out, took the reins, and that's exactly what we aim to do in May next year.
Your time is your time is up, Honourable Member. Thank you very much.
Finished.
We now give the EFF 4 minutes, no name provided to me.
Hello. I hear you say 4 minutes. Are you sure about the 4 minutes? I received 7 minutes on my notes. Are you sure?
Yeah, you
Person?
can keep on speaking, but on my notes here it's 4 minutes. I'll check it. But continue speaking, Honourable Member.
Chairperson, the EFF is taking these political killings very seriously, and we are not prepared to grandstand in this committee as we are in the search for solutions. Chairperson and colleagues, South Africa has a very long history of political killings and assassination of political office bearers and in particular councillors. The culture of violence and brutal killings has been with us since the old Nationalist Party regime prior 94. The then apartheid government employed unconventional tactics and strategies to keep them in power, And as a nation, we are acutely aware of how, at first, a low-density war, and later a full-scale civil war took place in the 80s and 90s between the IFP and ANC. This violence escalated from the then Natal to the Old Transvaal and caused deaths of members of both parties. Who can forget the existence of self-defense and self-protection units of the ANC and IFP? The brutal violence and killings of more than 20,000 people during that time are recorded in pieces of history of our country. That struggle was a struggle for liberation and freedom. On the one hand, on the other hand, a struggle to cling on to white apartheid rule by those nationalists who used our very own black brothers against those who fearlessly fought for the freedom of the oppressed. Resistance and brutal force were used to fight the noble idea of a democratic constitutional dispensation for all who live in South Africa. The current situation in parts of our country where political killings are taking place cannot be taken lightly. The same strategies and tactics are being used, but this time to secure a different outcome. Professor Paulo Zulu has testified before the Barani Commission that, quote, some councillors wouldn't qualify for jobs. Once elected, they adjusted their lifestyles and clung to their jobs, ensuring that nothing would prejudice their livelihoods, even if they have to eliminate opposition, unquote. Our country is faced with an engraved culture of violence inculcated and deeply rooted in the political conscience of those who want to use positions for power in the pursuit of corruption. The EFF calls on SAPS and the intelligence forces to change their method of investigation and look deeper into this very serious matter. It is a fact that our country's history has exposed the existence of third forces in the apartheid era. These forces were used to keep the political elite and politically connected in power. Their mission was to kill and destroy as many as possible of those who stand in their way, to enrich themselves and exploit the ignorance of the innocent. Citizens of violent infested areas are becoming increasingly fed up with the government's lack of inaction or intervention. They suffer immensely under these circumstances. Freedom, safety and security are still evading them after 30 years of democracy. If the situation continues as chairperson, it may lead to some sort of insurrection. The EFF proposed urgent crime prevention intervention by all forces available. We further demand that a commission of inquiry be established in order to bring to book the dark and evil forces behind these senseless killings. These criminals are ruthless in their attack on civilians. Their actions require fire by fire. The police must man up and show muscle to eradicate these senseless killings. Just 2 days ago, Inkosi Vela Shandu was brutally murdered in KZN. This follows a string of other assassinations, including the attack on Inkosi Khumalo in Utrecht, who was shot in the presence of his family. The worst part about this chairperson of the murder of Inkosi Khumalo is that there was a previous attempt on his life, and despite this, the police did nothing to protect him. Police did nothing to protect him and to investigate the motivations for the attempt on his life. I close. Our children deserve a safe and secure environment in which they grow up. The time for action has arrived. The police must narrow every corner in this country and stop the foolish onslaught on our people. For this, we need a capable crime intelligence service with a specialized unit targeted at these political killings in KZN and in our country. We stand for freedom. We stand for liberation of our nation, and we stand for a crime-free South Africa. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. IFP, 4 minutes, no name provided to me.
Ngibonge kakhulu Salo. Salo ngibonga kakhulu ngithi egameni lenkatha yenkululeko yesizwe sithi thina ukubulala kwabantu akusilona mhlawumbe isixazululo ukuthi kubulawa abantu noma kubulawa amakhosi noma kubulawa mhlawumbe induna. Sithi umntwana ophinda angena thina usifundisile ukuthi njengoba siphila nje kufanele sazi ukuthi udlame alusona isixazululo. Udlame futhi lona olungeke likwazi ukuphilisa umuntu. Futhi usifundisile ukuthi amalungelo abantu abakhona ngeke ngazi ukuthi ukwazi ukuvikela isithunzi somunye umuntu. Sithi ngaleyo ndlela inkatha izolokhu iqhubeke njalo, mhlonishwa mphathi ohlelo, izolokhu iqhubeke njalo isho ukuthi amakhosi ayisixazululo sokuthi imindeni iphile, amakhosi ayisixazululo sokuthi kube khona ukuvikela komphakathi, amakhosi ayisixazululo sokuthi kube khona ukuthula ezweni, amakhosi futhi ayisixazululo sokuthi kube khona ukubambisana ezweni. sithi ukubulawa kwamakhosi akusiyona into okufanele sixoxe ngoba njengoba ngikhuluma nawe amakhosi asebulewe kwaZulu Natal angaphezulu kwama-20 amakhosi asebulewe lokhu eLimpopo iyodwa amakhosi abulewe eMpumalanga 2 amakhosi asebulewe Eastern Cape awu5 induna eseyibulewe zingaphezulu kwama-30 okukhombisa ukuthi kukhona okungenziwe kahle ngiyethuka nje ilunga le-ANC lithi lona uyakwazi ukuvikela amakhosi phela u-ANC ophethe njengamanje u-ANC kufanele ngabe uvikela amakhosi u-ANC kufanele ngabe ufaka imali yokuvikela amakhosi kune-10 million iyafakwa kwaZulu Natal ukuthi kuvikelwe amakhosi ifakwa ku-department yekhokha kuze kube manje leyo mali akwazi ukuthi kuphi inkosi uKhumalo kuba kuthiwa leyo mali bisisebenza ngabe inkosi uKhumalo iyaphila manje ngaleyo ndlela njengoba eshile umhlonishwa uZandile Majozi induna seyibulewe eGoli uzazi inganani njengoba sikhuluma nje kubulewe induna ebulawe eNasfield uduma kude kubulewe induna yakwangubane elokho eKagiso manje ngaleyo ndlela sithi thina akube khona indlela yokuthi abantu base-South Africa induna amakhosi akube khona indlela yokuthi kufakwe imali ngabe uhulumeni omkhulu ngabe uhulumeni weprovince ngabe uhulumeni wamalokho okamasipala kufakwe imali kuvikelwa amakhosi njengoba kuvikelwa amalokho ama-minister njengoba kuvikelwa o-premier njengoba kuvikelwa ama-mayor akuvikelwe amakhosi njengoba kuvikelwa abaholi abagqamileyo ngaleyo ndlela sithi thina siyazi ukuthi ngonyaka ozayo siyokhethweni uma siyokhethweni-ke kufanele sibe nesiqiniseko sokuthi wonke umuntu uyavikeleka kufanele sibe nesiqiniseko sokuthi sonke siyavikeleka ngaleyo ndlela ngithi sithi mphathi ohlelo sicela amakhosi sicela induna zivikeleke angithokoze kakhulu
Siyabonga baba sibonga kakhulu Honorable Groenewald is nou jou tyd 4 minute
Dankie voorsitter voorsitter die onderwerp van bespreking is die versoek dat daar dringend ingegryp moet word deur die polisie en intelligensiestrukture ten opsigte van die politieke moorde wat in Suid-Afrika plaasvind. Ek wil dit duidelik stel dat politieke moorde is nie iets nuuts wat nou skielik na vore getree het nie. In 2013 was daar alreeds 'n verslag wat aangedui het dat meer as 450 politieke moorde en wat eintlik maar niks anders as sluipmoorde is wat plaasgevind het in KwaZulu-Natal nie. If you listen to some experts, they are also quite clear when it comes to the political assassinations. Raymond Suttner said the following, and I quote, "Assassinations have become a regularized way of deciding on leadership and access to wealth within the ANC and its allies." Close quote. In 2016, the ANC secretary, then Secretary General Gwedi Mantashe said, and I quote, "The reality is that selection of candidates for council is always a life and death issue." Close quote. Now, Chair, there was a high panel of investigation to the security system and specifically the intelligence structures. And we saw what happened in 21 with the riots in KZN. And there was a person named Mufamadi who then led this high-level panel into the security structures, specifically the intelligence. And I'm going to quote and mention a couple of their findings. One is, and as I said, I quote, "From about 2005, with the emergence of the divisions in the ANC, there has been a growing politicization and factionalization of the civilian intelligence community based on the factions in the ANC. From about 2009, we saw a marked doctrinal shift in the civilian intelligence community away from the prescripts of the Constitution, White Paper, and legislation. The amalgamation of the National Intelligence Agency and the South African Secret Services into the State Security Agency was a monumental blunder. apart from the fact that it did not take place on the basis of a formal change of policy involving parliamentary and public consultation. There is a disproportionate application of secrecy in the state security agencies, stifling effective accountability and facilitating serious non-compliance with controls, including blatant criminality. Lastly, due to wide-ranging resources abuse, the SSA became in effect a cash cow for many of its members and external stakeholders. Voorsitter, die intelligensiestrukture was gekaap en is nog steeds gekaap, want hierdie verslag was reeds in 2018 en ons sien nie dat daar enige stappe geneem is om die situasie te verbeter nie. Ek dankie.
Baie dankie, Honorable Groenewald. Our next speaker from the UDM without a name is 3 minutes. UDM, it is my conclusion that the UDM has elected not to participate in the debates. The next speaker is ATM, 3 minutes. It is therefore my conclusion that the ATM has elected not to participate in the debate. We now move over to Good. 3 minutes. We conclude that Good has elected not to be part of the debates of today. Honorable Gumba of the African National Congress, you've got 9 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, let me begin by reiterating to the forward of the integrated crime violence strategy of government when it says, crime and violence continue to be amongst the most serious and intracted impediments to development in South Africa and the global community. These impediments are the result of a multiplicity of factors related to the socio-economic challenges experienced by the country, which are characterized by extreme inequality, poverty, spatial segregation, and high level of unemployment. Further, that it is acknowledged that there cannot be sustainable socio-economic development in the midst of high crime levels, and that effective measures are needed to address the underlying factors that give rise to commission of crime and violence. In this debate, our focus will be on measures to strengthen the capacity of the law enforcement agencies to fight crime, to fight violent crime. We take this argument in acknowledgement that capacity of some of our enforcement agencies have been weakened, especially in the period that is characterized as a period of state capture. The recent census by Statistics South Africa show that the population in our country is now at 62 million people. This means that the ratio between the police and the population is not at the same level that it desired to ensure safety for the citizens. We believe that government will pay a particular attention to this important information on our population from Stats SA when it considers its budget allocations to various budget votes. Honorable Chair, we are concerned about the matters that are taking place in our country, including the political killings and the killings of traditional leaders. As far back as 2016, South African Police Services established a specialized unit to deal with the political killings. This was necessitated by the then rise of in the political killings, especially in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We are in agreement with the progress report by the Interministerial Committee that most of the regions in affected provinces are showing signs of stability insofar as killings of political leaders is concerned. We further welcome the suggestion in the enhancing of work of the task team. The IMC has resolved that there will be dedicated courts to speedily prosecute these matters. Honorable Chair, these dedicated courts will speed up these cases and thus ensure that justice is served to the families of the victims of the political killings. The concern of government in violence crime was highlighted by the President in the State of the Nation address early this year, February, when it said violent crime takes a heavy toll on every South African. Communities across our country live in fear for their safety for the safety of their families. This situation cannot continue. As part of the intervention, the strength of the law enforcement agencies, the President said that we are strengthening the South African police services to prevent crime, improving the capacity of the National Prosecuting Authority and courts to ensure perpetrators are brought to justice. Honorable Chair, further than this, intervention includes putting more police on the streets and setting up specialized teams that will focus on specific types of crimes. In addition, the President went on to commit on a further 10,000 police officers that will be recruited and trained as this year, and that more funding will be made available in this year's budget for police, the NPA and the specialized unit, and the NPA and the specialized investigating unit. In this regard, the police in its budget undertook a fight serious and organized crime in line with the intervention identified in the national policing strategy to prevent the investigate crime in that threatens the economy, activities, and in the detective service program for over the medium term aimed at addressing and increasing the crime targets at the critical infrastructure such as local constructive project. In addition, the teams will fight serious crimes encompassing visible policing, crime intelligence, and detective services. In this regard, the average growth rate of the budget allocation for police visibility has grown by 4%, and that of detective services has grown by 3.8%. These figures may be marginal, but they illustrate the consistency of government policy on strengthening the capacity of law enforcement agencies aligned to budget allocations. As a practice, we should use the crime indicators and stats to measure the impact of policy intervention and budget allocations to the police. We note that the second quarter crime statistics realized that the police showed that the crime of murder has declined by 0.8% as compared to the same period in 2022. Honorable Chair, the Minister of Police indicated that during the event of the release of the second quarter crime stats, as was the case in previous quarters, the majority of the people killed in South Africa are murdered during arguments, misunderstandings, the provocations that usually take place in the social gatherings. He further said arguments, vigilism, and robbery remain the top of three causes or factors of murder in majority of the provinces. We understand that political killings and the killings of traditional leaders falls under the category of murder as reflected in the stats. The question that arises from these stats is for us as a society to engage on how do we manage our arguments, our misunderstandings, our provocations, to ensure that these social interactions does not lead to tragic matters. Honorable Chair, this calls for us, for all of us, as a society, to entrench the value system that defines our being as people. We the value system of Ubuntu, Botho. We should all, at all material times, encourage our young people and people in general to resolve whatever dispute or misunderstanding they have in a peaceful manner. We make a call to civil societies and community-based organizations to play their part in re-engineering and moral fiber to our society, to move from the logic of resolving disputes in a violent manner to a logic of peaceful resolution to disputes.
Honorable Gomba,
Honorable Chair, I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gomba. Honorable Sheikh Imam, NFP, 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, let us not treat this matter very lightly, and let us be honest about what is going on in KwaZulu-Natal. This has been going on during the days of apartheid, and my colleague from the EFF is absolutely correct. To such an extent, the leadership in some organizations even refused to testify in the TRC. Thousands of our black brothers and sisters were massacred in collusion with the apartheid regime of South Africa. That is basically what it is. So let's not sugarcoat what is going on. What is going on in KZN, if we can't beat you, we kill you. Finished. We want the power, we want the control, we want it at any cost. That's what it is all about. If you look at our councillor, that the 75-year-old, mercilessly, a 75-year-old, that's why I say whoever killed her is no different to the state of Israel. Exactly the same barbaric manner in which they killed a 75-year-old councillor. Why did they kill a chairperson? Before they killed her, a very own member of the NFP tried to convince our councillors not to vote our party. Remember, this had happened just after the NFP took over the Nongoma municipality. Tried to convince our party, our councillor, to vote with the opposition to give them back power. When that failed, they attempted to kill one councillor, failed, they went and killed Mama Nkunu. That's basically what they did. Having not finished, because you need numbers to finish, what did they do after that? They went to try and kill another councillor, and this time the suspect was caught, chairperson. And after getting caught, what happened, chairperson? Who is the suspect? Linked to some senior leaders in certain political parties in KwaZulu-Natal. And what did the minister say? He was shocked if you looked at the legal representation, the cream of the crop that came there to come and defend this suspect who was found guilty, was arrested by the community. Having not finished that, chairperson, having not finished that, they went to kill another councillor of ours. When they were not able to do that and the councillor was not at home, what did they do, chairperson? They killed the husband of the councillor, chairperson. This is all about power and control. KwaZulu-Natal will not change because it's embedded in the minds that we have to have power and control and nothing less and nothing more. And I want to say to all the political parties, go into your coalitions, but be prepared to have your councillors killed. Many different political party councillors have already died in KwaZulu-Natal. More of you will die if you don't toe the line. And let me tell you this much, chairperson, the amount of money that is changing hands, that is why killing in KwaZulu-Natal is big business, because bags of cash is changing hands. And that is why they are destabilizing even other political parties. That's why the coalitions are not even working, chairperson. Monies are changing. Take the NFP. We were in a pole position to take over Zululand, chairperson. We can't take it even though we got the numbers with the ANC and other parties, because monies are changing hands. And our people are dying. To such an extent, they are instilling fear, chairperson, into the minds of our councillors so that they can toe the line with other parties and not with their own political parties. Now, what has happened? Absolutely nothing, even though there's been arrest. The same day that they were arrested, there was a motion being brought for vote of no confidence in Nongoma. This is the state of KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Your time is up. AIC, you are the next 3 minutes. It is my assumption that the AIC has decided not to be part of the debates. For the next 3 minutes, it's COPE. It is my assumption that COPE has decided not to participate in the debate. 3 minutes for the PAC, Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. Comrade Chair, Sobukwe taught us that you must vanquish our political opponents with facts, not with knuckle duster. Also, Comrade Supra, Iapla taught us that ijoni elingena politiki limos, because politics should come.
We seem to be losing you, honorable member.
Sorry, Chair, I have a network problem, Chair.
Okay, proceed.
Yes, we should also, so it is not the politics, that it is not the gun that command politics. Also, Comrade Chair, the failure of government not to clarify clear roles between councillors and Amakhosi has created tensions on the levels in West. But as PAC, we call on the Minister of Police to deal with criminals decisively, to face them head on, because this thing of a police service doesn't work. Parliament must review this thing of having a police service. We need a police force, otherwise we'll all die. If criminals can be able to hijack police, that means there is no law in this country. We must change. And Minister Tele, if into Isebenzi, otherwise we will all die like flies. We must consider a police force asanda sana.
Thank you very much, honorable member. We are now going to Honorable Kotla. 5 minutes.
That is being taken by Honorable Whitfield, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Whitfield, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to my colleague, Honorable Kola Barnard. Chair, at the outset, I think it's absolutely critical that we state that it cannot be the function only of the South African Police Service to deal with such a complex culture that is deeply embedded in many communities when it comes to politically motivated killings. However, I think it is also important that we correct some of the misleading information that we've heard in this debate from some of the honourable members who seem to intimate that SAPS has an increasing budget when in fact it will have a reduced budget. When the categories or the divisions within SAPS increase by 3 or 4%, that is completely wiped out by inflation and inefficiencies within supply chain leakage and wastage, and the list goes on. However, Chair, when we do talk about politically motivated killings, including the Amakhosi and other traditional leaders, we are in fact, for the most part, talking about rural safety. Now, rural policing in South Africa is almost entirely non-existent, with violent crime on the rise and some of the worst rape statistics located in rural areas like Lusikisiki, which has been one of the rape capitals of the country for years. The harsh reality of community safety for these people in our country is that communities are left to defend themselves against violent criminals due to the under-resourcing and poor capacitation of the SAPS. And we know this, Chair, because SAPS's budget allocation of 100 billion rand was only met with 65% of its targets in the last financial year. So money is not the problem. The implementation of plans and strategies appears to be where the dysfunction resides. Now, in 2019, the minister launched his rural safety plan, the SAPS rural safety plan, to much fanfare, promising increased involvement of traditional leadership structures and improved rural safety outcomes. The reality is that rural areas are less safe almost 5 years later, with no meaningful integration with rural community safety structures. Plans that remain on paper are about as useful as the thousands of SAPS vehicles that remain without tires. Now, I've met with local chiefs in places like Mount Frere who feel abandoned by government and helpless to protect the lives, livelihoods, and livestock of the people, including traditional leaders, who live in the shadow of crime on a daily basis. The resources and strategies of SAPS in areas like BT outside Mthatha, for example, are not aligned to the requirements of that policing area. In Mkhekezweni, which is near BT, there's a rape protection racket thriving, with local chiefs feeling helpless as the criminal justice system is not working together with them to help to keep the community safe. This is exacerbated by the poor, chronically poor service delivery by local municipalities in these areas, which add to the challenges of policing. It is a fact that SAPS's resources are constrained due to competing priorities across the country, but the fact also remains that political killings threaten the stability of the state, and attacks on traditional leaders threaten the stability of local communities and cultures which remain integral to life in those areas. Now, Chairperson, political contestation in places like KZN is high and requires urgent attention in the run-up to the 2024 elections, where a shift in power away from the ANC appears almost certain. Traditional leadership plays an important role in that province, and the ongoing killings are an indication of the lack of political tolerance and good governance in KZN. KZN's traditional leaders are living under constant threat. Their ability to do their work without fear or favor is being affected, while more than 50 councillors, local government councillors, have been assassinated in KZN since 2018. It really is time for SAPS to allocate appropriate resources to rural communities and to make sure that they work hand in glove with traditional leaders and local communities to secure a sustainable presence to bring about stability and safety through stronger relationships built on trust. More than this, SAPS needs to send a strong message through increased presence in the areas in KZN and the Eastern Cape with the highest levels of political killings, and ensure that that presence is ramped up in the months leading up to the elections when tensions will be higher than normal. The message must be abundantly clear and unequivocal to all criminals in South Africa that SAPS has a zero-tolerance approach to crime and to political killings, and we ensure that they have plans to prevent these crimes and not just react. The DA remains available to help with solutions and to work together to rescue rural communities from violent crime. We remain committed to working towards those solutions in order to end the scourge of political killings. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Whitfield. The Minister, the honorable members have spoken. The masses have listened. It's up to you now for the next 12 minutes to provide clarity.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to you and the rest of the platform. Chairperson, the discussions that are here, I will just maybe towards the end urge and make the clarion call that our behavior as from this level needs to change to deal with this matter. Chairperson, as we dig deeper to understand the complexity of this crime, of the matter of official bearers, office bearers, whether political or traditional, the motive behind these matters are linked to intra and interpolitical conflicts, with a few cases linked to other motives, such as taxi violence, domestic-related issues, business competition, traditional leadership competition, as well as family feuds. In the case of the killing of councillors and office bearers, police investigations have revealed that the most affected political parties are the ANC, IFP, and NFP. From the 52 murder cases of councillors, 31 ANC councillors were killed, while 14 were from the IFP, 4 from the NFP, 2 from the FF, and 1 from ACDP. Total 55 councillors have been gunned down in KZN alone since 2011 to date. Alarmingly, 103 officials working within municipalities, political office bearers, and officials in political offices were killed. It simply cannot be that those who are elected into position tasked to serve communities live in fear and lives. This is a very reason this administration remained resolute in its stance to urgently and vigorously tackle crimes that threaten the lives and the livelihoods of South Africans and the property. Chairperson, for that reason, the President formed the IMC following the spate of brutal attacks and murders of political opponents in KZN province. In 2018, President instructed that the IMC must be established, and indeed that interministerial looking at the political killing in KZN was established. The committee formed an integral multidisciplinary task team investigating political killings in KZN, and they had clear mandate. The work of this team, consisting of highly trained detectives, has been operational since 2018 to date, and its work speaks for itself. Chair, most of these cases that were investigated were closed, undetected, withdrawn, and some referral for inquest. That is before the formation of the team. Basically, prior to the task team involvement in political-related cases, the cases simply fell through the cracks. KZN was turning into a killing field. Since the implementation of this integrated multidisciplinary investigation approach of the task team, 8 of KZN 11 regions have since stabilized. We credit the stability in the regions to the comprehensive work of the task team and the consolidated security cluster interventions approved by this IMC. There has been a progress in cases. I wish to dispel any thought of insinuation that the government is not doing enough to tackle and stop the killing of politicians elected to the serve communities and other officials there. Since July 2018 to date, the task team has investigated 326 dockets there. This includes 160 cases of murder, 51 of attempted murder, 77 intimidation, 12 of conspiracy to commit murder, with 26 other ad hoc cases. So far, the work of the task team has resulted in the arrest of 357 suspects who have already been charged on 233 cases. 65 suspects have been convicted, while 163 of them are going through the court as we speak. 17 arrested suspects have since died during the court process. So the firearms, more than 400 firearms have been found there, but 48 firearms specifically have been used in killing people there, which seems to be the preferred kind of weapon. Chairperson, that tells you that some of these firearms, they kill repeatedly, rather than that every person is killed by a single firearm. As such, for political-related cases and parallel cases of murder, attempted murder, intimidation, extortion, malicious damage to property, possession of unlicensed firearm and ammunition, a total of 101 accused were found guilty on 94 cases. The task team has secured 18 life sentences out of these cases. 35 accused have been sentenced between 10 and 73 years. 28 accused were handed down sentences between 1 to 9 years, with 15 accused sentenced between 3 to 12 months. All the sentences combined total to 1,597 years imprisonment. While murder cases in KwaZulu-Natal are investigated by the task team, other 5 provinces also affected by the political-related matters are being investigated by the Provincial Serious and Violent Crime Units. These provinces are Mpumalanga, which has had 12 political-related crimes, including murder. 16 suspects have since been arrested and charged, and investigation continues. Eastern Cape has had 6 such cases, with 7 suspects having been arrested and charged. 5 cases related to political are being investigated in Limpopo, with 12 suspects have been arrested and are through the court cases. Western Cape has 5 cases, with 4 arrests, and police are investigating 11 cases in Gauteng with 2 arrests. The motives of this, as I have touched about, I have touched on some of the causative factors for these politically linked shares. What has also emerged is that murder cases that were reported before 2016 and 2021 local government elections were mainly as a result of fighting over councillor positions where councillors were eliminated. That is both intra and inter-political parties and across political parties of all mentioned, especially 3 in KZN that were mentioned with the more victims. Majority of the murder cases reported after the 2016 and 2021 local government elections were associated with infighting with structures and municipalities over position. Violent competition between business forum over community development projects or tenders was also noted as a possible motive. Moreover, seemingly there is a pocket of society where the barrel of the gun and not through negotiations decides coalition. This question of coalitions, especially in province of KwaZulu-Natal, some of them are not negotiated, are done through the barrel of the gun, and the political parties, they know and understand very well. So it's a call on political parties, Chair, to deal with the matters that they understand. I went to Kwanongoma, where I was asking why there is a problem. Chair, the hatred, the bitterness, and the animosity that is there can only be dealt by the political parties themselves rather than the law enforcement. So political parties, some of them who are here and grandstanding, must make sure that they deal with their internal politics and interpolitical issues where they exist. Chairperson, yes, the long arm of the law will not be selective, nor will it be kind to all role players in the whole criminal value chain. This includes those who order the hits or those paid to pull the trigger. Similar criminal targeting this time of Izinduna and Amakhosi, as well as other traditional leaders, has also been observed in the country and most prominently in KwaZulu-Natal. To better understanding the crimes committed against traditional leaders, we must understand what could be at the heart of the legs. In 2014, the president at the time declared that Izinduna and Amakhosi should be remunerated with monthly salary from the state. By 2019, the traditional leaders started receiving a salary on this. This will be escalated. The threat against Amakhosi Izinduna and has led to incidents of violence, which includes killings. The motive for these hits range from fighting over position, land dispute, headmanship dispute, feud over the power, and the problem of the family feud. In this regard, the SEPs subsequently established a team to focus on these target killings with a specific focus on the KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Eastern Cape provinces. Since 2020, a total of 43 murder cases and 5 attempted murder cases have been investigated by SEPs involving Izinduna. 21 suspects have been arrested and are going through the court processes which are at different stages of finalization. 10 murder cases of Amakhosi are being investigated by police and 8 suspects have been arrested for the alleged responsive role in the matters. Chairperson, the work of the task team extends beyond the KZN borders. Its work has also been exemplary in the investigation and ultimate breakthrough of the murder cases in the cases of the murder of Forte. The task team is also assisting investigation in Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces on similar cases, including the killing of Izinduna and Amakhosi. In enhancing the work of the task team, the IMC has also set up dedicated courts to speedily prosecute politically related. This will go a long way in speedily prosecuting and resolving these matters. Indeed, we are very much aware of elections coming, and we are enhancing our work to be able to work to reduce any kind of conflict. Chairperson, ngicela ukwenza inhlabamkhosi ikakhulu kuma-political parties lawa athintekayo. Akayeke ukuzo-grandstanda ngento enjela, awasize ayoxazulula iy'nkinga eziningi ezingaphakathi. Kulabantu engibabalile kakhulu amakhansela ashonile, kunamakhansela abulawa abantu bawo, ama-comrade awo, zonke ley'nhlangano. So kubalulekile ukuthi bakwazi ukuyokwenza lokho. Chair, sizimisela ukuthi njengoba sesivumelene nongqongqoshe wezohulumeni wasekhaya ukuhlangana soluxoxe lolu daba, sibameme nalabo abanye kwenzela ukuthi bathole okungaphezulu kokuqonda ukuthi yini inkinga ezingezuqedwa amaphoyisa kuphela, nawo ama-political party afake igalelo ekuxazululeni lezi nkinga. Siyabonga.
Minister Sibonga kakhulu, thank you very much. And I hope, honorable members, that we will not have the debate for the sake of it, and that we will indeed, as parties, speak among ourselves on the ground, speak to the people, so that this matter can be resolved permanently. Honorable Majozi, 2 minutes to do a wrap-up.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Allow me to say, I do not want, in fact, I concur with the minister. I do not want us to come here and grandstand on this debate. And we cannot put the killings of Amakhosi and Izinduna under one umbrella. Izinduna appointed by us to represent community, irregardless of political affiliation. We can not come here and grandstand and talk about coalitions and unnecessary issues when we are all protected by the same Amakhosi, and will speak from a privileged background because they have never resided in a rural area, knowing that they are not affected by matters of Amakhosi and Izinduna, but are here deployed on behalf of the votes of the same people that are protected by Amakhosi and Izinduna. Amakhosi, Izinduna, and traditional leaders are the only leaders, especially in rural areas, who are still capping the increase of violence and criminal activities. Allow me to say that once we take this debate and this crucial issue of the killing of Amakhosi and Izinduna lightly, we will face more crime and serious criminal activities in areas where Amakhosi and Izinduna are residing. We hope that our call to provide security for Amakhosi and Izinduna will be adhered to. Let's take responsibility of our failed government process to protect Amakhosi and Izinduna. Uma ngabe bakhona babandekelayo kwindaba zokuthi ama-councillors abulewe, izinduna zibulewe, ababoshwe phela labo bantu. Asibone umthetho uwenza into ekumele uwenze, ubophe ababandekelayo kulezo zinto ezenzakalayo. In conclusion, the existence of and role of Amakhosi and Izinduna is very important within our security, Chairperson. We hope that as there is Operation Shanela, as there is other operations that are taking place, also the killing of Amakhosi and Izinduna will be taken serious by the government. And we cannot come here and grandstand. I brought this topic because it is something, we're talking about human beings here. We are talking about human lives. We are not talking about animals that are maybe are killed every now and then when we rejoice. No, it is the lives of people and people that are protecting the same communities, regardless of political affiliation. So let us not come here honestly and grandstand. And if honestly there is any process or anything that is found that people are implicated, then they should be arrested. Let us not come here today and speak about, hey, let us know. Let us do the correct thing. Let us do what we are supposed to do. Protect Amakhosi that are protecting our communities. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Z Majozi. I became a little bit flexible in as far as time is concerned on you, to allow you to wrap up. Honorable members, this concludes the debate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Majozi. This concludes the debate. We shall now proceed to the last item on the order paper, which is subject for discussion in the name of Honorable W J Boshoff on the right of communities to participate in the management and the development of both private and public educational institutions at all levels. Honorable Boshoff, you've got 6 minutes to begin.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Mopelo. The so-called final constitution of 1996 was a compromise. We all know that. The previous government believed that power could be shared evenly between groups of vastly uneven numbers. The ANC insisted, on the other hand, on majority rule in a unitary state. The Freedom Front then believed the Gordian knot could be cut by recognizing self-determination territorially and culturally. Let us turn to self-determination for a moment. It is an internationally recognized concept, revered by the ANC when applied to Palestine or the Sahrawi Republic, but it is demonized whenever someone wants to apply it to South Africa. Yet, in 2015, South Africa ratified the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights of 1976. In Article 1, it states, all people have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. And further on, the state parties to the present covenant shall promote the realization of the right of self-determination and shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations. Now back to the Compromise of 1996. There is no power sharing in this unitary state. And although self-determination is recognized in the Constitution, the autonomy of Orania through its representative council is still its only application. But some traces of self-determination were included in the SA Schools Act of the same year, although never by that name. Let us attend to education post-1996. Schools were turned from state to public schools. That meant that communities, through school governing bodies, gained the function to determine a school's language and culture, while the state retained the authority to dictate learning content. At universities, historical white institutions were left untouched, while Afrikaans universities, except for Stellenbosch, were amalgamated with historical black universities or campuses, immediately altering their demographics. Historical black universities were either left intact or amalgamated with Afrikaans ones. Changes were indeed gradual. Pressure on Afrikaans schools came from both declining numbers and from departments, leading to some 10% of Afrikaans unilingual schools of 1994 still being that today. Universities tried to feed the crocodile by making concessions before they were forced to do so. The Gerwel recommendation that one university in the north and one in the south should remain Afrikaans were turned down. Each rather made its own concession, hoping to be left alone to do their work as they saw fit afterwards. The ANC, however, is intentional on transformation and will not be apologetic about it. That I learned in meetings of the Portfolio Committee for Higher Education. Allow me to remark that the committee consists of creative, intelligent, and lively members. Getting to know them is a highlight of the past 4 years. But on some issues, we just don't find each other. I once asked if transformation in higher education means that every class, resident, student association, department, faculty, and campus of every university should reflect the demography of the country as a whole. And the answer was affirmative. That would limit Afrikaans students to a maximum of 10% anywhere. The billable, as we learned in the Committee for Basic Education, is necessary because when the department needs to confront SGBs on transformation, it needs the law on its side. Charterist and Africanist approaches to South African societies have one thing in common. For the nation to live, the tribe must die. The common language of learning and political participation is English, while so-called vernacular languages are relegated to the private sphere. Now, if most of the peoples in South Africa prefer to forgo their right to self-determination, it does not mean that all are obliged to do so. Afrikaans educators would normally rather die than invoke the right to self-determination. A constructive relation with the government would preclude that. And therefore, our own teachers diligently taught ANC ideology in schools as the only and undiluted truth for the past 30 years. Without excluding anyone on race, gender, or religion, cultural communities who prefer to do so should have the right to develop and manage public and private educational institutions. That can best be done by a cultural authority, which should be constituted under Section 235 of the South African Constitution. Such a cultural authority should invite private and public schools and post-school institutions to resort under it. Institutions wishing to do so should not be penalized by the state financially or otherwise, as it will be fulfillment of the commanding statement it ratified. All peoples have the right of self-determination, and the states shall promote the realization of the right of self-determination. I thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Boshoff. That's kind of you. You saved about 40 seconds. We'll now move to the Deputy Minister. 10 minutes, Deputy Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. If I may be allowed to keep my video off because of network issues.
No problem.
Honorable Chair and members, I think when we initially read through the proposed motion, it was a little bit confusing to understand what the intention of the motion is. And I think listening to the Honorable Member having articulated what the intention of the motion is, it is actually even more worrying to get that particular understanding, because the gist of his argument is the fact that we need to promote a notion of self-determination, which should be based on language and culture, and that the compromise of our constitution, although it provides for such a platform to be created wherein institutions are created on the basis of language and culture, the Honourable Member believes that our government has not provided the platform within which government can work with communities to help support them in creating these community institutions. And I think the important false line in the argument of the Honourable Member who raised this motion is the fact that the notions of self-determination, the notions of language and culture cannot be used to further segregate our communities and reinforce the basis within which the apartheid superstructure has been created. Our constitution was inspired by long history of struggle against the apartheid system, but not only that, it took into consideration those who were in support of and were privileged to benefit from the apartheid system. And that is why it is referred to as one of the major fundamental compromises and probably one of the best constitutions in the world. The intention of this constitution was obviously to support, as it relates to education, one of the important call that was led by the African National Congress, together with various other students, youth and worker formations, which was a campaign for people's education, for people's power. The implication of this campaign was that in the democratic epoch, we must allow education we must not allow education to become the preserve of a privileged few, and must ensure that education is accessible for all members of our society. And what's important is that we need to ensure that we build an education system that is geared towards addressing the most urgent needs of society, and therefore serves as a cardinal instrument for the fundamental transformation of our society. So if we are to pursue people's education for people's power, it should not be on the basis of creating little Oranias throughout the country where language, culture of a particular racial group is celebrated in the exclusion of the rest of society, because this will mean that we're further advocating for the polarization of our society. Pursuant to this vision of a people's education for people's power, as government, we have implemented a number of key legislation in support and contrary to what the Honourable Member is advancing. And one of them, of course, being the Constitution. The second, which he also mentioned, is the South African Schools Act of 1996, which provides a uniform system for organization, governance, and also funding of schools. And that the Act, the South African Schools Act, also empowers the state to approve the establishment of public and independent schools, to withdraw such approval if any school violates any of the norms and standards that relates to admission policy, language of instruction, freedom of religion, or cultural expression of governance standards. And I think we even went further with regards to legislation when we introduced the Higher Education Act of 1997, which provides for, amongst other things, the establishment of a council on higher education, but also the registration of private higher education institutions as the appointment of an independent assessor and the promotion of quality assurance. So principally, our constitution and the various pieces of legislation that I referred to seek to ensure that we have a single, integrated, coherent, non-racist, and non-sexist basic and higher education system that is free of the discriminatory practices that were a feature of our racist past. What we have seen, House Chairperson, is that there are certain racial groups that have promoted the creation of exclusionary both secondary and higher education institution with the intention, or at face value, the intention is to promote a particular language and a particular culture. But in the overall, we know that this is intended to create some form of local state or state institution whose intention will be for the exclusion of the race. All over the country, we've heard how certain individuals have been praising, and groups have been praising the initiatives, for instance, that were started by Solidarity and AfriForum in building an institution called Soltech. The institution's intention, obviously, is not openly stated as being exclusionary Afrikaner, but we know that to suggest that only those who have contributed to the establishment of these institutions will be the beneficiaries of this institution, that on its own shows the intention of wanting to create a segregationist type of private education. There are many private institutions that exist in the country, and some of them obviously charging exorbitant amounts, but any of those institutions whose genesis is to promote racialism should not in any way be allowed. And I want to emphasize remember that Soltech itself has been created, for instance, as a result of the contributions of Afrikaner communities, which is commendable. But many of our communities out there, you can talk about Soweto, Alexandra, Khayelitsha, and everywhere else, do not have the private resources to be able to contribute to create, for instance, a Xhosa, Tswana, or Zulu exclusionary institution. But even then, that can never be the intention of this particular country. We know where we come from and what our history has been. And we think that education has played an important role in integrating our communities, in creating some form of unity within our communities, and in ensuring that we build a better South Africa for all that has shed itself all the remnants of apartheid. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, we want to emphasize that through this legislation and also through our intention to build this kind of society, we've seen the growth of private schools and also the growth of private higher education, which have made an indelible impact. But what we want to also discourage is the establishment of fly-by-night institutions that have been wreaking havoc in our sector, and some of them hiding behind motions such as this, trying to promote, inclusion and all of that. We are not in any way going to be encouraging a situation wherein people whose intention is to make profits only without meeting the national developmental goals of this country are allowed to operate unregulated and so on. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. We will add 40 seconds to Honorable Boshoff when you wrap up, and add 1 minute to the Speaker of the ANC towards the end. It's now 6 minutes. Honorable BB Nodada of the DA. Honorable Nodada.
Chairperson, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. And
thank you so much,
yeah,
Chairperson.
we can see.
Chairperson, while the Department of Basic Education claims to have every child's best interests at heart, surely no one will care more for a child than their own parents. The department has introduced the Abantu Education Style Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, which goes out of its way to disempower parents and communities. No longer will school governing bodies determine admissions and language policies. This will be left in the hands of heads of provincial education departments. And tough luck if they inevitably decide to abuse it and put political ideology above the needs of the local community, because the department is both player and referee. If you don't like it, homeschool your children. But the department insists on having a finger in this pie too. The ANC was willfully deaf when parents of homeschooling sector engaged on the issue before the Bella Bill was even brought to Parliament. And this trend continued during the public participation process. Thousands of submissions rejecting the Bella Bill were ignored in favor of the ANC's agenda to capture schools. This only makes the public participation process nothing more than an expensive box-ticking exercise, but also contravenes the constitutional judgment on the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, which made it very clear that, I quote, a reasonable opportunity to participate in legislative affairs must be an opportunity capable of influencing the decision to be taken, close quote. Parents and communities were stripped of their reasonable opportunity to influence the outcome of their children's future. The Bella Bill is very far from being transformational. In fact, the opposite is true. It seeks to disempower parents and ultimately rob learners of quality education while failing to address the real issues that plague the education system. The ANC would rather go to 1,200 functional schools with active parents for their failure to fix the 20,000 public schools they have broken. The real issues they should be focusing on are the fact that 81% of grade 4s can't read for meaning in any language, and 56% of grade 6 learners cannot read at grade 4 level, despite the Deputy Minister making a shocking excuse that learners don't know octopuses. I mean, in rural areas, they haven't seen tigers either, but they are taught about those at school. Therefore, they need to be able to read for meaning in their own mother tongue. 74% of schools don't have libraries to even help with this reading crisis. Grade 4 and 8 struggle with basic maths and science, yet 82% of schools don't have labs and 2/3 of schools don't have computer centers. How can the department prepare children for economically viable futures when they can't teach them the skills they need, that they would need to participate? Teachers can't read either, by the way, and they fail exams for the very same subjects that they teach. When tested on regional tests in the continent, only 64% had critical reading skills at grade 6 level. Only 3 in every 10 teachers had concrete problem-solving skills when tested at grade 6 level, and only 35% had abstract problem-solving skills. Thousands of children are subjected to overcrowded classrooms and dangerous infrastructure because the ANC has failed to build quality indigenous language schools in the last 30 years. In fact, projects are delayed by an average of 27 months so cadres can eat while children suffer. 3,932 schools still have pit toilets, and 728 of them have pit toilets only, which 506 are in the Eastern Cape, the province where Langalam Viki died in a pit toilet because the ANC does not care about poor children. Schools are graveyards not only to bury children in pit toilets, but also sinking their futures to a life of poverty and unemployment. South Africa's basic education sector struggles with high dropout rates as well. Does the Bantu education style Bella Bill address this? Absolutely not. 337,000 learners meant to complete matric last year probably ended up joining the 3.3 million youth not in employment, education, or skills training, forming part of the 7 in every 10 young people that are unemployed. They say the proof is in the pudding. The pudding tastes of an inept, uncaring ANC government that seeks to punish successful schools for its own failures by breaking them and then preventing parents and communities from intervening. But the DA, on the other hand, cares about quality education for all children. That is why the Western Cape has invested 1.2 billion in its Back on Track program, 1,433 schools are receiving extra support at the foundation phase level. 2,600 foundation phase teachers and 2,900 grade 4s, 7, 8, and 10 and 12 teachers have received training and additional support from the Department of Education in the Western Cape to improve literacy and numeracy. And a further 2 hours per week was allocated to reading, which is why double the number of children in the Western Cape can read for meaning. Western Cape builds schools in 65 days, quality teaching is monitored, and we focus on keeping learners in schools to achieve quality outcomes rather than quantity, meaning they have a better chance of participating in the economy. Fellow South Africans, if you want parental choice in education, mother tongue education, quality teaching, proper school infrastructure, well-resourced schools, your children being able to read for meaning, quality education that leads to quality outcomes, then vote for the DA in 2024, take out this uncaring ANC government that wants to bury our children in a life of poverty and unemployment. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable NODA of the DA. We will now give 6 minutes to the EFF. No name has been provided to me.
Thank you, House Chair. In the realm of education, the debate over who holds the reins in the management and development of educational institution has been ongoing. Traditionally, the control and decision-making powers have been centralized, often in the hands of government bodies or private entities. However, a growing chorus of voices advocating for a change or a shift is going on, arguing that communities should play a pivotal role in shaping the educational landscape. These chorus of voices should, however, not be allowed to sing a tune that will result in the exclusion of a certain group of people in the society, all in the name of a community. Therefore, as much as it may be ordinarily accepted without any protest, that the community must be involved in development of educational institutions, the motive and intentions of any policies must be closely scrutinized. Indeed, communities are the bedrock of societal values and cultural identity. Allowing them a central role in educational institution ensures that the curriculum, teaching methodologies and policies align with the cultural fabric of the region. If educational institutions are to serve us, they should be pertinent to our history, surrounding political and social economic circumstances and influences. Local communities possesses a better understanding of their unique needs and challenges, ensuring that education is not a one-size-fits-all model, but tailored to the local content. The aim of the reconstruction of the curriculum should be to give indigenous African language system their rightful place as equal valid ways of knowledge among the area of knowledge, of knowledge system in the world, so as to solve the global and the local problem more effectively. Higher education institutions have contributed to the marginalization and exclusion of traditional knowledges and ways of knowing in this discourse and practice of African development. The burden, therefore, lies again with the higher education institution to reverse this. Higher education should examine the extent to which the idea of development promoted by the development agencies and government is informed by the wishes and thoughts of local communities. It ought to examine the source of the knowledge that informs what is imposed on or prescribed for South Africans, and how scholars are implicated in the universalization of the European experience. It should ask which way of knowing scholars validate and promote, and which ones they ignore, invalidate, and why. What should not be done in development of educational institution is a discussed process such as enrollment, curricula change, and language changes, all because of one minority community which its casual end is to exclude the majority. In fact, the starting point should be to define who is the community. And the community can never be a small minority group that seeks to impose its political policies through the use of educational institutions. In a democratic state, the community must be the majority. It cannot be disputed that empowering communities fosters a sense of ownership and accountability. Society won't look around wondering when and why young people lacking in critical learnings that relate to our societies, as they will have contributed to what they sit and listen to in classroom the whole day. When individuals within a community are actively involved in the development and management processes, this is a natural inclination to ensure the success of educational institutions. No one wants to ask that they are, no one wants to a task that they are contributing towards the faith. This involvement promotes transparency as decisions are made within the collective interest in mind, reducing the chances of corruption and mismanagement. But be it as it may, there need to be an oversight over policies that are proposed by the community, and the custodian of that oversight should remain with the government. In what ways are education curricula, whether in private or public institutions, solving societal problems and meeting societal needs? That is a question that should be asked at all times when developing educational institutions. A policy or a bill that seeks to exclude certain learners or students from enrolling in a certain parts of the country, depending on whether they will have access to, does not solve societal problem. It amplifies them. If the community is to influence educational institutions, they must seek to unify and eliminate any policies that slightly resemble policies that are discriminatory based on race and socio-economic statuses. Private institutions may also not be allowed to do as they please, having policies and processes that are tailored to exclude. The involvement of communities should ensure uniformity across public and private institutions. The issues of the communities should be accounted for, whether a student sits in private college or public school. Granting communities the right to manage and develop educational institutions allow for the customization of programs to meet specific requirements. This flexibility ensures that students receive an education that is not only academically rigorous, but also
Honorable Fighter, your time is up. Thank you very much.
No.
Our next speaker is Honorable S.S. Zondo of the IFP, 4 minutes. Honorable S.S. Zondo. We assume that Honorable S.S. Zondo is not going to participate in the debates. Our next speaker is Honorable F.J. Mulder, 4 minutes, FF+.
Honorable Chairperson, my
Yes.
apologies. It's Honorable Majozi. Honorable Zondo is having a problem with his connection, but I just wanted to, I wanted to alert the chairperson, but I will revert back to him because he has a speech with him.
Are you taking over Z Majozi?
No, I'm not taking over. I'm just alerting because he has just sent me now that he has problems. Yeah.
Okay, he will then alert the table, will come back, the table staff will come back to him. Thanks, Honorable Z Majozi. Honorable Mulder, 4 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, geachte voorsitter. In die lig van die staatskaping, korrupsie en swak regering wat Suid-Afrika die afgelope 30 jaar onder ANC bewind beleef het, vertrou toenemend meer ouers uit verskeie taal- en kultuurgroepe nie die staat met hulle kinders en vertrou hulle ook nie die staat met die skool se geld. We can't blame them, can we? Die Bella-wet plaas die staat eerder as die ouers van 'n gemeenskap in beheer van hulle kinders se skoolgeld en skoolopvoeding. Voorsitter, lydens 'n verslag vir die Solidariteit Navorsingsinstituut glo 99% van die respondente dat die gehalte van onderrig negatief deur die wetgewing geraak gaan word en dat moedertaalonderrig en veral dan Afrikaans deur die Bella-wet bedreig word. Afrikaanse skole presteer oor die algemeen goed en die meeste van die land se Afrikaanse skole word tans deur beheerliggame bestuur. Skole waar beheerliggame nie besonder betrokke is nie, of waar die staat in beheer van skole staan, vaar oor die algemeen swakker. Voorsitter, hierdie skole het al 'n reputasie van verval en swak dissipline opgedoen, wat meer bring dat minder leerders aansoek doen om toelating tot hierdie skole. Die leerders en ouers wat dan vervreem word, doen dan by hierdie presterende skole aansoek vanweë die gehalte onderrig en dissipline wat by die skole gehandhaaf word. Voorsitter, sedert ek tussen 2004 en 2014 as lid van die Gauteng wetgewer gedien het, het die aanslag op selfbestuur van ouer gemeenskappe en moedertaalonderrig in veelheid toegeneem. Die agbare minister van basiese onderwys, Angie Motshekga, was toe die LER vir onderwys in Gauteng. Die ANC-regering het met hierdie wet nie die beste besluit geneem in belang van gehalte onderwys, maar 'n klap uitgedeel na gemeenskappe en gehalte onderrig. Dankie, voorsitter.
Oh, baie dankie, Honorable Mulder. UDM, 3 minutes. It's our assumption that the UDM will not participate in the debate. ATM, 3 minutes.
The Honorable
Yes.
Zondo is back.
Okay, Z Majozi, I'll come back to Honorable Zondo. ATM, 3 minutes. It's our assumption that the ATM will not participate in the debate. GOOD, 3 minutes. GOOD. It's our conclusion that GOOD will not be participating in the minutes. Honorable Z Majozi, we are now going back to you for Honorable SS Zondo. 4 minutes, Honorable Zondo.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. The definition of the word education has been widely debated. However, at its most basic form, it can be defined as an act or a process of impacting or acquiring general knowledge, developing and the power of reasoning and judgment, and generally for the preparing oneself or other individual for a mature life. With this understanding, it becomes evident that education is not a responsibility that only instructors, teachers, and lecturers carry. Rather, it is shared amongst parental figures, immediate and extended families, friends, and educational figures. At a basic education level, communities have always been involved in the development of our minds, as the circumstances we see in our immediate surrounding often informed our perspectives. This is also a reason behind the importance of school governing bodies. As a member of the community, have the unique ability to inform teachers, principals of the particular challenges children and youth are facing in their areas where they reside. At a high level, as we have all come to know, it is not just about academia. It is also about fostering a sense of community and engagement. It is about creating a supportive and inclusive environment that nurtures connections and sense of belonging, which is crucial for enhancing the student experience. It is also communities engaging with the institutions such as TVETs and setters to inform this institution of the way of which they can make an education and training programs relevant for students that will enable students to contribute to their development of communities. Therefore, Honorable Chairperson, the IFP is in full support of the community participation and engagement in the development of both public and private educational institutions. After all, this is not a foreign or a new concept to the IFP. Our late founder and the President Emeritus, the Honorable Prince of Wapindangen, established the Rand for Rand Community Cooperation Program, through which he built schools and roping communities to own schools. Giving communities a stake in the ownership of the school mean that there were no burglars or vandalism or theft of the school property, which has sadly become the order of the day nowadays. His Excellency Prince of Wapindangan has already provided us with the framework to realize the topic of we are debating today. He has shown us that education, be it at basic or high level, it is a responsibility we all share. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Zondo. Honorable Mkachwa of the AIC, 10 minutes.
Of the ANC.
Oh, it's written. I was surprised. Yo.
One, Pella. And I've not crossed the floor.
Yo, you can't do that. Under no circumstances can that happen.
I could never. It's fine, Honorable House Chairperson.
You've got 10 minutes. Yeah.
Honorable House Chairperson, honorable members, citizens of South Africa, good morning. Honorable members, reading this motion, I worry that many ordinary citizens could be confused. So one must begin by clearly outlining that the Bill of Rights under the South African Constitution clearly stipulates that everyone has the right to establish and maintain at their own expense independent educational institutions that do not discriminate on the basis of race, are registered with the state, and maintain standards that are not inferior to standards at comparable public educational institutions. On top of that, subsection 3 does not preclude that state subsidies for independent educational institutions, meaning independent educational institutions can be subsidized by the state. We must also outline that the Higher Education Act also clearly stipulates the regulations for the registration of private higher education institutions as outlined by the Deputy Minister earlier on. Honorable members, education is a social good. It's a public good. Hence, the Freedom Charter was deliberate in declaring that the doors of learning and culture shall be open to all. This was because the apartheid government believed that for Black people, the great doors of learning and culture should not be opened. It believed that the great doors to stellies, tikkies, witwatersrand, rau, pika, kofsies were not meant to be open to Black people. Only the doors to doom and gloom should have been opened to Black people. And today, this ANC government has opened those doors. And so now you, yet again, want to create other doors, alternative doors, instead of acting like patriotic citizens who support government in ensuring that the doors to education are strengthened and supported to achieve equal access to decolonized, inclusive, futuristic, and quality education for all citizens. You're so averse to equality and want South Africa for all its people to enjoy. You're so comfortable with inequality and segregationist behavior. You're so obsessed with white supremacy or Afrikaner nationalism that you manipulate the enrollment processes at some institutions like Stellenbosch University. Honorable members, the legacies of racist apartheid South Africa linger in our institutions like a sour odor. We all know this as we continuously witness racially induced acts unfold at institutions like Stellenbosch and UFS. The Portfolio Committee on Higher Education has thus deliberately monitored transformation at various institutions in our sector. When we visited Stellenbosch University last year, we were shocked by the manipulation of student enrollments. We say it's manipulation because it makes no sense how you could have high enrollment registrations of white first-year students when the outstanding majority of the applicants were Black. It means the institution was deliberately nitpicking the type of students they want to admit at the university. At what point will the minority in this country accept that the majority in this country is Black? And therefore, all microcosms of the broader South African community will have Black people in majority. Thus, it will translate to demographic representation in all spheres of this country. At what point will conservative thinking white people in this country genuinely hop onto the train towards an inclusive and socially cohesive South Africa? At what point will you join Project Make Our Democracy Work? At what point will you join the agenda to truly bring to life our constitution? If you truly believe in this democracy, you would appreciate the challenges this government was bound to face in trying to create equal access to education, because it was Verwoerd who said we, Black people, the majority in this country, must have inferior education. It was Verwoerd that left us with unequally resourced institutions. So we have spent the last 29 years, almost 30 years, almost my age, building schools in all corners of this country where the apartheid regime believed there was no need to have schools, expanding universities that the apartheid regime wanted to be accessible to only a select few that they themselves nitpicked. In the last 20 years, we have worked towards ensuring that we include maths, science, and all other subjects that the apartheid government believed we didn't need because all we were meant to be were domestic workers, gardeners, unskilled laborers. If you were truly concerned by the quality of education in this country, as true believers of this democracy, you would take all this resource and time you're using on building independent institutions and invest it in capacitating our public education system for all our children and youth to enjoy. But it's not solely a resource issue, right? It's a matter of not having a shared national identity. It's the resistance to transformation and developmental goals we're trying to achieve through the broader education system, which we cannot and will not deter from because we are very intentional and deliberate about what we seek to achieve through our education system. This government invests the greater portion of its budget, 460 billion approximately, towards education and learning because it acknowledges that education is a critical tool in addressing the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Education can assist us in ensuring that our citizens are active participants in the economy who can thus aim to shape the livelihoods of their families and communities towards greener pastures, the greener pastures that Verwoerd did not want us to have. Education, as the Freedom Charter states, must teach the youth to love their people and their culture, to honor human brotherhood and sisterhood, liberty and peace. This is why it's not possible that government will not intervene when we see crisis in the education sector. These institutions are public institutions, thus they must shape and be shaped by the communities they exist within. Yet, when we want to address matters in institutions that are against our constitution, or we want to address matters in our institutions that are against our constitution, which has in itself been shaped by the Freedom Charter, we are told about institutional autonomy and academic freedom. Well, through Nazi Germany and apartheid South Africa, we know very well how governments must not encroach on the institutional autonomy and academic freedom of institutions of learning. But we will not allow institutions to become enclaves of racism, sexism, and all sorts of regressive behavior. As such, we must embrace the motion of cooperative governance of all institutions of learning. We must embrace the views of all in shaping the outcomes of our public institutions of learning. My fear, honorable members, with the behavior of some private institutions or independent institutions is that they are sometimes bogus. They are sometimes capitalist in nature. When a learner or a student has not paid their fees, they kick them out and infringe on their right to education. They subject our children to treatment that is against the values embedded in our constitution. I mean, children's hair, their culture, language, something clearly stipulated in the Constitution, clearly stipulated in the Freedom Charter, is policed in some of these schools. You want to create your own institutions because you do not appreciate the need for government, which is the people. Government is the people, to question the ivory tower posturing of educational institutions, in particular universities. Education, honorable members, is a social good, I say again, and motive to establish independent schools to preserve Afrikaner culture or white supremacy due to resistance to integration is reactionary and counter-progressive. Institutional autonomy should also not be used to preserve Afrikaner institutional culture, as in the case we've seen at times at Stellenbosch University. Institutional cultures in all our educational institutions should be embedded in the promotion of cultural diversity of our country and its people. Moving forward, as the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training, we might have to zoom into independent educational institutions which are developed for narrow ethnic interests. As Parliament, we should ensure that these independent institutions do not discriminate on the basis of race, culture, class, or gender. I must agree with Honorable Boshoff that indeed we appreciate often at times his views in the committee, and at times we really do agree. But on this one, Honorable Boshoff, I don't think you are even surprised. I think you said it in your remarks. We do not agree. What we should be investing our energy on is ensuring that we have social cohesion in this country. You cannot run away. You cannot continue to build enclaves where you are. No, it's not going to happen. The reality is that you are existing within a democratic South Africa, and let us all put all our energies together to make sure that our education system is an education system accessible to all and equal for all, and that of quality, and that of which will take this country collectively forward. I thank you, Honorable House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mukachwa. And once more, my apology for saying that you are from the AIC when you are from the African National Congress. Thank you very much, Honorable Nompidoski. You saved a minute, so we will add it to the ANC later on. We now have 3 minutes to listen to COPE. I haven't been given a name. COPE. It's our assumption that COPE will not be participating in the debate. We migrate to the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania for 3 minutes.
Comrade Commissar, you must get it from me that we are not participating. Don't assume. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Member Isolate. The DA for the next 5 minutes is Honorable King.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, my camera will be off because we're experiencing load shedding. To break the cycle of poverty. Okay. To break the cycle of poverty, inequality, and unemployment in South the education sector is a microcosm of society, striving to ensure societal and economic enhancement through the knowledge generation and skills development of human capital. Higher education is intended to empower graduates to address various challenges and to be flexible. Governance and management of institutions of higher learning encapsulates the need to impart knowledge, endeavor in research and development, and skills development to address the critical shortage evolving in the labor market. But a number of institutions are facing challenges. UNISA's administration, ICT challenges, nepotism, and internal fights between council executive workers and students. UCT experienced governance challenges and internal strife between council executive workers and students. And University of the is marked by worker dissatisfaction with the direction council executives are taking and the revelations of political infiltration. Independent assessor investigative reports in the sector continuously to mar how governance is done in the poor governance, no policy direction, outdated or inconsistent approach to human resource procedures, changing the operational and administrative functions at will, blatantly ignoring the code of conduct and deliberately excluding workers and students from participating in council. These have all been making headlines in the news. University councils can institution by involving all stakeholders within the community. Colloquials on governance within the post-school education and training sector has not fully comprehended the involvement of all stakeholders, nor did it factor in the importance of autonomy when faced with massification at institutions of higher learning. The curriculum and a development need to change the nature of the job and the market we are in. There is one drawback. DET and CHE is only focusing on public institutions when consulting on governance and national plans to achieve its goals, forgetting the option against for financial limitations, serving as a conduit to meet skill shortages in the workplace. To ensure meaningful participation in private higher education institutions, legislative changes is needed to institutionalize governance structures inclusive of workers and academic output. Collaboration between public and higher education institutions is vital to ensure the success of institutions to address the challenges still prevalent in our society. The us and them approach and the over-regulation of our policy on higher educational types almost came close to addressing the outlook and public and private education, but still falters at the last step by the usurping powers of the minister to downgrade these institutions. If the 41% expanded definition unemployment rate and the 3.3 million people aged between 15 and 24 not in employment, education, and training is anything to go by, we can draw the
Honorable King.
Our chairperson, she's not saying anything substantial.
Honorable King, we have lost you now. You kept on breaking.
Imagine to deliberately move towards getting people
Honorable
out
King.
of the unemployment queues.
Honorable King.
Yes.
Sorry to disrupt you, my sister. You kept on cutting, we kept on losing you. I'm going to request you that you go back about 3 sentences back. And then we will also give you an extra 1 minute. The third thing is that if you can submit your input to Parliament so that the most correct text of what you said here today can be printed, because the recording will not produce the most correct text because you kept on cutting. So I'm going to give you, I'll use my discretion to give an extra minute or so. Honorable King, I think she's trying to reconnect. What we will do, honorable members, we will go back to Honorable King, are you back?
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, Honorable King, did you hear me?
I couldn't hear you at all. The load shedding is so bad here in Port Elizabeth.
I sympathize with you, Honorable King. I said 3 things. The first thing is that I will give you, through my discretion, extra 1 minute, 30 seconds, because you kept on cutting. Secondly, I will request that you submit the input of today to Parliament so that the correct version of your perspective can be recorded in Parliament, because the recording service will not be able to detect other things that could not be covered during your presentation. Thirdly, I said to the members that we will give you an opportunity to go back about 5 sentences back. I think it's about a paragraph or so that you can at least cover some ground.
Okay, Chair, I'll continue. This is an opportunity for the business sector through the investment into research and development and the levy contribution towards skills development to actively form part of the university councils and CETA boards to address the mismatch of supply and demand in the labor market. Through a whole of society approach in which government, business, and civil society work together, the education sector can be rescued from business incoherent policies, corrupt endemic in the sector, and political interference. This ANC-led government is not even capable of reimagining themselves. How can we allow them to reimagine the education sector? Students and academic staff, don't be political fodder to the ANC. You mold and shape the future generation of our country and use your leverage to bring change to our country in 2024. We are the alternative to rescue South Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable King. We will now, for the next 12 minutes, it was 10 minutes, so we added a 2 minute. ANC represented by Honorable Yabo, the opportunity to present his perspective. Honorable Yabo.
Better.
Greetings, Honorable House Chair. The debate presented by Honorable Boshoff betrays a racially biased and blatant defense of our historical status quo and a disregard for the reconciliatory and united development of our collective future presented by the ANC government, and it must be rejected entirely. As always, the DA, like the proverbial parrot, repeat the tautology of an unfounded fight against the Bella Bill while casting a blind eye to the staggering backlog created by a system which focused on the development of the minority and the underdevelopment of the majority of this country. A system designed and perpetuated by the forebears of the very DA. Honorable, note that pit latrines are the legacy of the DA and its forebears. Lest we forget, because according to the DA, Black people didn't deserve dignified sanitation. The ANC government is hands on deck to resolve that historical monstrosity. Our education system has a particular history of segregation and the advancement of colonial interest to subjugate the oppressed and for the production of cheap labor for industries. Education is a transformative and liberating tool which our democratic South Africa should harness to realize the vision as set out in the Freedom Charter and the Constitution. Creating equal opportunities for all South Africans to realize their potential should orientate all educational institutions to serve the diversity of our nation. Embedded in our education system are the advancements of the cultural dominance of firstly British culture through language and literature, and that of Afrikaner culture, which also entrenched language and culture in many of our schools, which were designated for the minority. Lest we forget the struggles of the 1976 generation, who in the main were rejecting cultural dominance and the inferior Bantu education. Since 1994, the ANC government has advanced the creation of a single education system which advances our national objectives and the pursuance of knowledge. This national objective has faced various distortions and resistance within cultural communities that see a single system as a threat to their cultural dominance. It is a concern for the ANC that 29 years into our constitutional democracy, sections in our society resist transformation with the sole intention of advancing racial segregation and cultural dominance. Our constitution, Chair, is instructive in Chapter 1, Paragraph 6, Subparagraph 2, as follows. Open quote, recognizing the historically diminished use and status of the indigenous languages of our people, the state must take practical and positive measures to elevate the status and advance the use of these indigenous languages, close quote. It therefore cannot be that the continued elevation of the status of Afrikaans and English and the maintenance of a separatist development credo camouflaged as the right to the preservation and development of specific cultures is left to continue unabated in our education sector. In the basic education system, we do have schools with parents who request their children to be segregated based on race and culture. We also still have schools which practice initiation practices which violate other students. Through the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, the government seeks to introduce measures which promote diversity and negate communities that seek to advance narrow social interests using admission and language policies. This is so due to a majority of school governing bodies in areas which are spatially segregated due to race and class, who weaponize admission and language policies. The Bella Bill allocates powers to the HOD to approve admissions and language policies which experience has demonstrated can be abused for exclusion. This does not outstrip the authority of communities through the SGBs to develop admission and language policies. Other sections in our society have prompted for the call for the development of independent schools for narrow cultural reservations and to entrench segregation, philosophy, and practice. We are not against independent schools as the ANC, but we take exception when it is done for narrow interests that seek to negate social cohesion and nation building. In the higher education landscape, the phenomenon of white flight continues. White flight is the departure of white people from places such as urban neighborhoods or schools historically populated by minorities. For example, the University of Free State undergraduate total students had 6,057 white students in 2010. And in 2020, you had 3,603. The same pattern is reflected in Northwest University. And other former white institutions have experienced a steep decline in the number of white students due to matters related to threats of cultural dominance. What has this begotten? It has led to the Stellenbosch University attracting many of the white Afrikaner students. This has threatened the equity of admission policies as the university received applications with Black people consisting of the majority, but the admission is still skewed to white students. This is so in order to preserve the university as a final bastion of Afrikaner culture. The University of Cape Town has also benefited from this white flight phenomenon and continues to have a strong racially biased undercurrent in its policies. This is just an iota of the patterns in higher education. This reality requires the nation to ask itself fundamental questions about the trajectory of our nation and the advancement of a united nation in its diversity. The recent census of 2022 also highlights a decline in the white population, particularly amongst the youth. Recently, the Solidarity Movement, which consists of several institutions and independent partners, has approximately 500,000 families as members, is the largest mainstream Afrikaner organization and one of the largest organizations in the country. This movement built a solidarity technicon which mainly supports Afrikaner learners and academia, which is a higher education institution which explicitly promotes itself to be in favor of the Afrikaans language community. These institutions, Honorable Boshoff, seek to continue to clone a people who reject the ideas of our democratic dispensation. We all have the constitutional duty to uphold the spirit and intention of our constitution. Honorable Chair, it is no surprise that certain sectors and certain members of this august House still think that South Africa only started to exist in 1994, and there is no attached history to its development and its underdevelopment, which was engineered by those who wanted to establish a separatist development model that undermined the indigenous peoples of this country. The continued polarization of the country will only breed conflict and disintegration, which will impact future generations. Let us raise our children in schools which promote diversity. It is our considered view that we would like to admonish those who sit across from ourselves in the august House that it is in all our interests to develop a single nation, a sovereign nation, united in its diversity. Let us hold hands and contribute to creating a better future for upcoming generations. The vestiges of apartheid and colonialism should be buried through our actions and how we mold the future. As a nation with a polarized history, we should not promote the proliferation of independent schools for the segregation and stratification of our society on the basis of race and class. United, we stand. Divided, we fall. I thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Yabo Bafuzi from the African National Congress. We will now, honorable members, give Honorable Boshoff 2 minutes, 40 seconds for him to do a wrap-up of the debate. Over to you, Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. due to load shedding, I also don't have a good image. But I want to appreciate the opinions of Honorable Zondo and also Honorable Shikwambana, who recognize the fundamental role being played by communities. However, Honorable Shikwambana then proceeds to agree with the ANC members in only seeing the majority as the legitimate nation of South Africa. Now, I've read out of the covenant which the South African government ratified in 2015, which says all peoples, and that means subnational peoples, peoples within a state, have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue the economic, social, and cultural development. And that is what is done in educational institutions. And that is why it is wrong to say that all institutions should reflect the demography of the whole of South Africa. If we reach that stage, then we are not busy facilitating social cohesion. We are busy with the tyranny of the majority. That is what is going on. You don't build social cohesion in that way. You break it in that way. To refer to Soltec as the Deputy Minister and also Honorable Yawu did, I want to know if all TVET colleges in South Africa exclude training in Afrikaans and the Afrikaans community build one with its own money. How on earth is that exclusionary? How could that be contemplated as being exclusionary? It is indeed to include a marginalized community in post-school training. Honorable Mkhatshwa, with all the appreciation that I have for your person, I must say that the words that you ascribe to Dr. Verwoerd, he actually never said. And I even challenged an American journalist to prove to me, and he promised he would, he couldn't. There was no such presumption to say that Black people should not get learning, should be relegated to inferior education. And I would like to debate that at another stage. Honorable Chair, I think it is important that we preserve social cohesion in South Africa by facilitating and recognizing variety and cultural variety, not denying it, because that will have the exact opposite effect. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Honorable Boshoff. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the members for the participation in this debate. You will all agree that it was dignified, it was orderly, it was incisive, it was decisive, it was educative, and it is my assumption that Honorable Boshoff, yourself and other members, including Honorable Mkhatshwa, you will at your committee level deal with the matter relating to how you understand what Mr. Verwoerd will have done or will have said. That's part of enhancing debates as the House. Honorable members, this concludes the debate, and the business of the virtual mini-plenary is now brought to an end. We can now rise. Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon.